Meanwhile, the war in Gaza continues, and officials there say at least 44 people were killed by Israeli fire on Friday. Many of them had been trying to get food. Their deaths add to the hundreds of Palestinians killed in incidents near aid distribution sites since late May, when the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation bypassed the UN as the main supplier of aid in the Strip. The foundation is a U.S. and Israeli-backed entity recently created to feed the territory. As famine looms across Gaza after more than 20 months of war, UNICEF, the UN's children's agency, is now warning that thousands of children could die of thirst as water systems are collapsing. And I can now speak to Bill Deere. He's the director of the Washington Representative Office of UNRWA. That's the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees. Welcome to DW. Now, according to UNICEF, only 40% of drinking water production facilities remain functional in Gaza. How bad is the situation on the ground?
It is very, very bad. And we need to take a step back here, if you don't mind. The water situation is driven by the lack of fuel, the fuel crisis in Gaza. So basically, for over 100 days now, there's been a blockade on fuel. So the UN organizations and our partners are now rationing our fuel, doling it out with the proverbial eyedropper, with a prioritization on key sectors like water, health, and communications. So without fuel, the desalination plants that are so critical to fresh water in Gaza are come to a halt. The membranes that are used to purify the water are irreversibly damaged. Groundwater wells are at risk. That's why UNICEF is saying, for example, that without this water, already malnourished children will start to die within 12 to 24 hours. But there's a bigger loss. It's also the loss of life expected among patients when our incubators don't work anymore. The neonatal critical units come to a halt. Critical care units come to a halt. Ambulance services come to a halt. And it extends further. If there's not enough fuel, we're going to have a communications blackout. And humanitarian responders, we live and die with those systems. We need to be able to talk to folks in order to operate safely, manage logistics, distribute humanitarian assistance.
That would be because you use the fuel to power generators, correct?
Yes, ma'am. And without that fuel to power those generators, everything from the water system to the healthcare to communications, sanitation, it all collapses.
We need to talk about something else, because today saw another 44 people shot dead, most of them waiting for aid. Now, UNICEF accuses the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which has been tasked with the distribution of aid, of making a desperate situation worse. What's your assessment of that?
The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is essentially a solution in search of a problem. It is, in effect, forcing people into 4 ghettos of rubble. And as you noted when we came on, while the world's attention is shifted to Israel and Iran, it has become routine now to shoot and kill desperate and starving people in Gaza while they try and collect a little food.
How, just for our viewers to get a better understanding, how is that new aid scheme, or the distribution scheme rather, linked to these almost daily casualties we're seeing among people seeking aid?
Well, most of Gaza is a free fire zone. And, in order to get what little food there is available at these 4 distribution points, and remember, this is why I said this is a solution in search of a problem. Before the Netanyahu government shut down UN humanitarian operations, we had 400 distribution centers. What you're doing is you're forcing people to get up early in the morning, travel across essentially free fire zones in order to stand in lines in order to get the food. And what happens is it just takes one miscalculation, and you suddenly have, tank shells dropping in the middle of people waiting to get some basic food.
And you have, of course, or your organization has been active in Gaza and the Palestinian territories for many, many years. How has the GHF being tasked with the distribution of aid impacted the UN's ability to work in Gaza?
It has severely crippled the ability of the UN and our organization to do its job. For example, we're housing over 100,000 people at our schools. They've now become emergency shelters. My organization, UNRWA, is the largest provider of primary health care in the Strip right now. Every day we're seeing 15,000 patients, and we're running out of medicine. We've run out of food, and laws passed by the Israeli Knesset make it extremely difficult for our agency to do its job.
Do you have hopes for aid deliveries to, to happen in the framework of a system that can really alleviate the hardship of Gazans soon, effectively and less dangerous, of course?
Well, I would say this. During the ceasefire, the UN was finally able to move humanitarian assistance in regularly and at scale. And we were starting to claw back a little bit at the problem. But when the Netanyahu government decided to freeze out the UN and move to this system where people have to go to 4 distribution points instead of 400 to get a limited amount of assistance, I mean, this is essentially trying to move people into ghettos of rubble so that their military can operate more freely.
That was Bill Deere, Director of the Washington Representative Office of UNRWA. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.